Mercy, I beg you, don't kill me.
These are the first words you hear from Giangio, a shy man who claims to be a pharmacist suffering from the petrification disease. During this conversation, he gives Pinocchio a couple of items and tasks him with finding the gold coin tree, as its fruit is the only thing that can cure people suffering from this mysterious illness. And just like that, he sends Pinocchio on his way. It isn't until much later in the story that Giangio's usefulness becomes obvious, as his knowledge of pharmacology is instrumental in creating a cure to heal Antonia, who by this point is far too gone, but at least thanks to the cure can die as a normal human instead of being turned to stone. After that, Pinocchio doesn't really interact with him much aside from exchanging gold coin fruits for wish stones, and when he departs Hotel Krat, he simply leaves a note for Pinocchio thanking him for the time they spent together. So in a world where almost everyone is trying to kill you, it was nice to interact with someone who, despite knowing his end was near, helped you regardless. But as it turns out, this seemingly benevolent and timid person is hiding a dark truth about himself. A truth that isn't obvious when you first meet him, but one that we begin to unravel right at the end.
I have a final report on the Krat experiment.
You certainly took your time, Paracelsus. Your findings?
I think we have a new brother. A new type of humanity, so to speak.
There are many forms of eternal life.
It's intriguing, and worth further observation.
Noted. And we'll have to get his arm back anyway.
I'm counting on it. Expect another report at the next meeting.
Here we learn that Giangio isn't a poor pharmacist suffering from the petrification disease as he claimed. He seems to be a part of a secret organization whose main concern centers around all things relating to immortality. He mentions having secret meetings with this organization and how he needs to retrieve both the arm of God and Dorothy. So who exactly is Giangio, and what is he planning? A good place to start unraveling the mystery of Giangio is with his real name.
You certainly took your time, Paracelsus.
The name Paracelsus is really interesting because this is the name of a historical figure, Philippus Paracelsus, a 16th century Swiss physician credited with being the father of toxicology, and also a well-known alchemist of the time, which is a piece of information that our Paracelsus almost reveals when he first meets Pinocchio.
My name is Giangio. I'm an pharmacist. Yes, pharmacist.
The fact that Pinocchio is talking to a man who has lived in the 16th century isn't necessarily weird in this universe, as we learn in the alchemist scriptures that some among them are called the immortal ones, human beings who receive the gift of immortality from an eldrich being. We can deduce that Paracelsus was one of these humans for multiple reasons. First is the name Paracelsus. Then we have the letter he leaves to Pinocchio, which seems to imply that he is an eternal being. We can also find a letter he wrote to Valentinus Monad, where he refers to the leader of the Alchemists as his apprentice. Think about that for a second. The leader of the Alchemists, Valentinus Monad, was Paracelsus' apprentice. This means that Paracelsus belongs to a higher tier of alchemists, a group of alchemists that oversees the lower-ranking alchemists found in Krat. They may have worked together, but it is Paracelsus' Council of Elder Alchemists that has the ultimate control. If I were to make an educated guess, I would say that this council is comprised of immortal humans who gladly receive the gift of immortality from an eldritch being. Aside from Paracelsus and the mysterious woman on the phone, it's not clear who else is part of this council, but I suspect we can also include Simon Mana's father in there as well, as he plainly states that his father was not a normal human, which he believes is the reason why he also has supernatural powers. But whoever is part of this council at the moment doesn't matter. What matters is what their goal is. And based on what little information we have, the council, much like the alchemists we meet, are deeply concerned with all things relating to immortality. Which begs the question of how old they really are.
There are many forms of eternal life.
At first, it might seem like Paracelsus is about 300 years old because that's how old the real Paracelsus would have been if he had lived until the 19th century. But I think there's evidence that the name Paracelsus, much like the name Giangio, is one of the many identities that he has taken during his very long time on Earth. In reality, I think Paracelsus is much older, thousands of years if we want to be more exact. Evidence of his old age can be found in the description of his weapon, the Ouroboros Eye, which describes the weapon as lying asleep deep in the Arch Abbey. The Arch Abbey is the alchemist's secret base of operations. It was one of their many places where they conducted their evil human experiments to achieve immortality. And despite it being equipped with all sorts of modern equipment, the structure itself is very ancient. One might even say alien, very similar to what we see deep in the ruins of Krat. Clearly these structures were built thousands of years ago by the people who worship an eldritch entity who came to be known as an angel. And it was in this building that the alchemists first discovered Paracelsus' weapon. Something else that suggests Paracelsus is thousands of years old is the story behind the construction of Hotel Krat, which according to legend used to be a medieval castle that was constructed by a knight after he found the gold coin tree. At least that is the story Paracelsus passes to Pinocchio after meeting him. But this story is most likely a lie, or at the very least a legend that has very little truth to it, as we later learned that Giangio, aka Paracelsus, was the master of the ancient castle all along. And lastly, there's the cube relic that I think conclusively confirms that Paracelsus is thousands of years old, which so happens to be one of the items that Paracelsus gives Pinocchio when he meets him. This is what the relic's description says: the people of ancient Krat knew how to bottle a wish upon a star. Now, this might not sound very exciting at first, but this relic's description is essentially telling us how the ancient people of Krat might have triggered the arrival of the eldritch being. In the beginning, it was a wish. It had to be a wish. It is the only paradise perishable humans can have. For thousands of years, humans' wishes perished, but one reached the star. That was a miracle. More so because that star was a very good one. The star answered the humans and descended to Earth. Given that the cube relic can grant wishes, I think it's fair to say that a human probably used it to wish for the eldritch being's arrival. And given that we can place Paracelsus at the time of the eldritch being's arrival, and the fact that he was the previous owner of the cube relic, I can't help but think that it was Paracelsus himself who wished for the eldritch being's arrival all of those thousands of years ago. Now, if you've played Lies of P and watched a couple of lore videos, you might be a little bit confused with what I just said, because you've probably heard that the person who summoned the angel was Saint Frangelico. But I think this is a misunderstanding, a totally understandable misunderstanding, but a misunderstanding nonetheless. For one thing, Saint Frangelico did in a way summon this angel, he just wasn't the first one to do so. But where do fans get the idea that it was Saint Frangelico who summoned this being? Well, in the Moonlight Town Guide, we read that Saint Frangelico met a one-winged angel after he fell in the cold of winter. Then if we read the book Pistris No. 2, we come across this other line that seems to be telling the same story. A star that was curious about humans pretended to be human, then became one. The humans saw its splendor and called it an angel. Fans have noticed that both of these accounts make a reference to an angel and naturally conflate the two events of being one and the same, but I don't think this is correct. I think there's at least a couple of hundred years in between the arrival of the angel and Saint Frangelico meeting the same angel. I say this because when Saint Frangelico met the angel, he described him as having only one wing. This is a significant detail because what I think this is telling us is that Saint Frangelico met the angel many years after the humans rebelled against the angel, which resulted in the loss of one of his magical arms, something we read about in the Pistris sources. An angel's gift was something humans dared not enjoy. Many humans died with hope in their hearts, and the ones who lived harbored rage instead of death. Eventually humans destroyed and burned their hope on their own. That is how the angel became the god torn to death. I'll talk about this war between the angel and the humans in a bit. What you need to understand now is that it was during this event that the angel lost one of his magical arms, and I think this is the missing wing that the Saint Frangelico sources mention, or I guess don't mention. What you read in the Pistris and Saint Frangelico sources isn't the same story told from two different perspectives. They are two completely different stories. The Pistris sources focus on the angel's arrival and how he came to lose his magical arm, while the Saint Frangelico sources focus on an encounter that the saint had after the angel had already lost his arm, which is why he says that the angel only had one wing. Now, it seems like there's a contradiction with this interpretation because the Pistris sources do mention that the angel died after humans rebelled against him. So how could he have met Saint Frangelico if he was dead? Well, there's another Saint Frangelico document that gives an answer to this question, but if I get into it now, the video would get even more derailed. So I think I might just make a full video dedicated to Saint Frangelico's encounter with the angel, so let me know if that's something you'd be interested in. But in this video, I just wanted to clear up for people that Saint Frangelico's encounter with the angel was a different event from the angel's arrival on Earth, which allows me to bring the focus back to good old Paracelsus, the person I believe triggered the arrival of the angel. Now, given this event took place thousands of years ago, there isn't much information about it, but we do know that after the angel arrived, he tried to give humans the gift of immortality, which would make them immortal but at the cost of losing their humanity. However, it does seem that not everyone who received the gift of immortality was turned into a hideous monster from another dimension. Some of these humans seem to have retained their human appearance. These humans are Paracelsus and, I suppose, every member of the Council of Alchemists. At this time, it's not very clear how these humans were able to receive the gift of immortality while still preserving their human appearance. One possibility is that the angel gave them special treatment for being the ones who caused his arrival. Or perhaps they did become monsters, but due to their supernatural powers, they can take the form of regular humans to blend in with society, just like the eldrich being did before coming to Earth. When it comes to this mystery, it's not clear what the answer is, but what we do know is that many humans did not appreciate the angel's gift of immortality. This caused a schism among the people of ancient Krat that eventually led to a war between those who accepted the gift of immortality and those who refused it. Now, the story of this war has been passed down through the tradition of wearing animal masks, which historians of Krat claim began in ancient times, when humans put on animal masks when they fought against the rock titans. I believe the rock titans mentioned in this newspaper are the humans who accepted the angel's gift of immortality, which I'm sure looked very similar to the creatures we encounter in modern Krat, hence the name Rock Titans. We also have an armor set that belonged to one of the humans who fought against these monsters in ancient Krat. This is Veronique's armor set, which, according to its description, belonged to her ancestors who used it before the organization of stalkers even existed. Aside from these two sources and the Pistrus books, we don't have any information about this ancient war. But what we do know is that the humans who rejected the gift of immortality were eventually successful in defeating the angel, which is how Krat came to have a piece of his body. But how exactly were they able to succeed? After all, it's not like you can kill an eldritch being just using sword and shield. This is something we see in the game itself, as Pinocchio was only able to defeat the same being after collecting large amounts of ergo and using time travel to give him an edge.
The puppet, my Sophia, keeps turning back time to save.
So, how were these ancient humans able to defeat this being while it was in his prime? I think the only way this could have happened is if humans also had supernatural help. Supernatural help that came from Paracelsus and the Council of Immortal Humans. Right now, I'm really stretching myself thin trying to prove things about this time period that we don't have a lot of information about. But what little information we have seems to point in the direction that Paracelsus and the Council, for whatever reason, betrayed their god. A possible answer is that after they had received the gift of immortality, they wanted all the glory for themselves. After all, the angel's gift had essentially turned them into gods compared to regular humans. All they needed to do was betray their lord and take his place. That's when I think they offered their help to the humans who wanted to overthrow the angel. And I know that I'm only getting deeper into the waters of educated speculation here, but I think after they overthrew the angel, Paracelsus and the Council of Immortal Humans took his place and proceeded to spread the gift of immortality. At this point, I suspect humanity faced their biggest challenge yet. The powerful beings who had helped him overthrow the angel had now turned against him. Who would come to the rescue this time? Well, based on some things we find in the game, it seems that one of the immortal humans who had helped him overthrow the angel was still on their side. This was the Guardian of the Ruins, who came from the kingdom of this universe's version of the Little Mermaid story.
You serious?
This is what's funny about making theories about Souls-like games. If this is your first time watching one of my videos, I'm sure I sound insane to you right now. But what you need to know is that a few weeks ago I made a video where I proved that the underwater kingdom of the Little Mermaid in some form exists in the Lies of P universe. In that video, I pointed out the fact that the Guardian of the Ruins was referred to in ancient times as the Warrior of the Sea, and his weapon also happens to be a trident. The same weapon that Trident uses in Disney's Little Mermaid movie. Now, what's really interesting about the Guardian of the Ruins, aka the Warrior of the Sea, is how he came to guard the arm of God. Once again, we don't really have a lot of information about this event, but it seems like the Warrior of the Sea was fighting on the side of the humans who wanted to overthrow the angel. Because in the description of his ergo heart, we learned that he made a vow to slumber forever so long as his people were protected from immortality. But who did he make this vow to? At first glance, it might seem like he made this vow to the angel, since this is who was spreading the gift of immortality to humans. But the thing is, it couldn't have been the angel, because the reason he went into perpetual slumber was to protect the arm of the angel, which means that the angel was already defeated when he took his vow. So again I ask, who did he make this vow to? The only other person who was obsessed with immortality during that time was Paracelsus. which might mean that after overthrowing the angel, Paracelsus and the Council of Immortal Humans took the angel's place and continued spreading the gift of immortality. However, it seems like one of these immortal humans had a change of heart. Perhaps during the war against the angel, the warrior of the sea was reconnected to his human side while fighting next to mortal beings. He might have seen that despite being flawed in character, they were also capable of great acts of courage. Unlike the Immortal Council, humans knew their lives would come to an end, and so they made sure every day would count. The warrior of the sea might have come to understand that the ending of someone's life is what gives it true meaning. So it's possible that he had a change of heart. Instead of spreading immortality, he would be humanity's champion. And that's when he turned to Paracelsus and vowed to forever slumber as long as his people were spared from immortality. And for whatever reason, Paracelsus agreed, which left him and the rest of the council to watch over humanity for thousands of years. At some point, Paracelsus and the council created the Alchemist organization, and set them on a path to recover the arm of their former lord. Why Paracelsus and the council are doing any of this, it's not very clear. Based on his conversation with the mysterious woman on the phone, it does seem like he was trying to create a new form of eternal life with Pinocchio. But what he wants with him, it's still not very clear. It's also not clear what he needs Dorothy for. We don't even know who Dorothy is. Is she another puppet, or is she another form of eternal life? Even though I've made a lot of connections in this video, I feel like I haven't scratched the surface of the enigma that Paracelsus is. I can tell by reading all of the documents in the game that Round 8 Studio has already planned a story for this universe, but it's very hard to put all of these little hints together in a satisfactory way. I hope this video at least served to whet your appetite for the mysteries of Lies of P. If you have any theories about Paracelsus, I would love to read them in the comments section below. And if you want any more Lies of P deep dives, I recommend all of my other videos on the game, more specifically the one about the Little Mermaid universe. But with that said, let me know what you think about this theory/lore deep dive on Paracelsus. As always, I want to give a big thanks to all of my YouTube and Patreon members for supporting the channel monthly. I would also like to thank all of you who like and share my videos. It may not seem like much, but trust me, it really does help. And with that said, thanks for watching. And remember, go forth in the name of Olympus.